When you think of competitive Pokemon, you'd probably unconsciously think of Landorus Therian. No matter the format, whether it be Smogon Singles or VGC, it has been a competitive powerhouse and mainstay ever since its introduction back in Black and White 2. This is no different in the Draft League format, where Landorus has been an iconic draft pick since the format's inception. It's easy to say a Pokemon is good, but I think it's much more difficult to explain why it is good. Today we'll attempt to explain that as we delve into what has allowed Landorus T to have such consistent long-term success in the Draft League format. One of the most valuable things you can find in a Pokemon in the draft format is its ability to roll compress. In any given matchup, you face off against any given combination of massive threats, so having a Pokemon that can flex into multiple roles and aid your team becomes truly invaluable. Lando is as good of an example as you'll get. Landorus is the ultimate team player, always performing its role as intended. In DPL, the Draft Premier League, Landorus has come to a whopping 116 games across the 4 formats, only sitting twice. And despite not always being the star player, it has a solid 59% win rate across all generations in the tournament. It even has an exemplary 75% win rate in ORAS with a 27-9 record. That's the greatest success for any Pokemon in ORAS currently in the tournament. I'm going to touch on a few of the roles Landorus can fulfill and why it is so good at these particular roles. The best place to start is Landorus' typing. The ground flying typing is absolutely incredible, boasting incredible resistances and immunities. You also only have 2 weaknesses in water and that nasty 4x weakness to ice, but that can be taken advantage of, as we'll talk about here in a second. The combination of ground and flying allows you to be completely immune to both ground and electric moves, which is incredibly valuable. Having a solid check to ground types is very important, as well as being able to stop electric types from volt switching on you and getting momentum on forced switch outs. These 2 immunities are paramount in the pivoting that Landorus is able to pull off. Say for example, you're facing off against a Raikou back in Generation 6 and you have a Slowbro on the field. You know a Volt Switch or a Thunderbolt is coming out, so you're able to go hard Landorus blocking said electric attack. Now, a few things can happen from here. You can either threaten the Raikou out in fear of being a Scarf or a Yachi Berry set and blow it up with an Earthquake, or it can throw off a Hidden Power Ice to threaten you. Regardless, you're prepared and can either take that KO if you can, or pivot out into another Pokemon that can take the Hidden Power Ice and threaten Raikou. The importance of Landorus here isn't to necessarily wall out Raikou completely, but to reset tempo and not fall behind into an endless circle of momentum playing on the back foot. You could also use this typing more conventionally and just get this Pokemon in on something you resist, like a fighting, bug, or poison attack, or even just a majority of the game, being neutral to pretty much every typing in the game and having really solid bulk. A perfect example of this is Lando being one of the few Pokemon that can reliably take on the Edge-Quake dual-type combo, being immune to Earthquake and neutral to Rock-type moves, something only very few Pokemon can say. On top of that, its Intimidate ability makes it feel like those Stone Edges and Rock Slide are basically resisted when they come off a -1 attack. Being able to so easily naturally check Pokemon like Excadrill and even opposing Landorus is incredible. Next up is Lando's stats. No matter how good the typing is, if the stats don't back it up, it doesn't mean much. Defensively, Lando is rocking with a very solid spread, 89, 90, and 80 in its HP, defense, and special defense respectively. This solid distribution allows for a defensive Landorus to be spec'd either physically or specially defensively pretty easy. You're facing down Mega Lopunny and need a check? No problem, go Fizz Def. You're taking on your evil brother Lando I and need a switch in? Easy, go Spadef. It's also just great natural bulk for more offensive Landorus Ts to be used defensively or just as a pivot. Speaking of which, we have been hyping up its defenses, but Landorus is still an inherently offensive Pokemon. Yeah, let's not forget about that ridiculous base 145 attack stat. That hits a ludicrous 427 at level 100 with an Adamant Nature. This raw power is what allows Lando to serve as an incredible revenge killer with a Choice Scarf, a crazy sweeper with a Rock Polish, or an absolute nuke of a Wall Breaker with a Swords Dance. It even has a sneaky good 105 special attack stat to use cool coverage moves like Grass Knot, Psychic, and Sludge Wave. It does have a pretty mediocre base 91 speed, but that's far from bad and still outpaces several key Pokemon, especially with a Choice Scarf. The final piece of the puzzle is Landorus' moveset. Man, is it incredible, really allowing it to function in the myriad of roles we've mentioned up to now. Especially pre-Generation 9. Why did they do my goat so dirty? Give him his move pool back. Offensively, you have a devastating Edge-Quake combination, as well as invaluable moves like Knock Off for item removal and U-Turn for gaining momentum. And even cool options like a devastating Explosion allowing you to not only deal massive damage, but also regain momentum in your favor. Support move-wise, you have the aforementioned Knock Off and U-Turn, as they're as much support moves as they are offensive moves, as well as Stealth Rocks, Toxic, and Defog prior to Generation 9 at least. Then of course, setup-wise, you can obviously with either your Swords Dance or Rock Polish, or go with both in a matchup where Double Dance is feasible. The perfect storm combination of Landorus' move pool, stats, and typing allow it to function as the role of a Scarfer, physically or specially defensive pivot, hazard setter, breaker, or even sweeper. Let's look into a few DPL games from last season showcasing the versatility of Landorus firsthand. Alrighty gang, our first game we're going to be going over is going to be Bobbert versus Max here. Max on the side of the Landorus, who obviously is going to be the focus of today. This is a Gen 7 game, so Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon basically is the meta that we're going to be watching. We're going to zoom through. This is going to be kind of a showcase of Landorus's more offensive capabilities, its ability to win video games and, you know, be able to sweep through teams with just a rock polish and things like that. So we'll kind of zoom through these guys. We'll go ahead and put it on fast, actually. You see, we just need App Chip, things to take a little bit of damage. We see big Illumise coming out here, eject bunting out into the Zard, and we see a really cool Zard set actually with an SD flame charge into this Gligar, because I mean this thing's gonna not take very much damage from an EQ. Yeah, only 60 because Zard's obviously fat as hell. We're gonna go ahead and Dragon Claw the second turn, guaranteed to take it out. T-Punch is actually going to take out the Blastoise, and it honestly looked like this is going to be a Zard replay when I was originally watching it, but Mesprit just barely holds on, is able to get off a big T-Wave onto it. And despite the next Flame Charge, this will make it to where Coco can obviously, you know, revenge it. However, obviously, Max is in a pretty commanding position right now, and in particular the Landorus is. There's not much that really takes it on. There's really only two ways, or I guess three main stops to this Landorus. The first of which is going to be the one on the field in Tapu Koko. This is Gen 7, so Hidden Power is in the game. However, looking at the calcs, this Hidden Power Ice, unless this is an Expert Belt Koko, which it has not been confirmed to be, unless this is an Expert Belt Koko, this does not kill with HP Ice. Guaranteed. 95 max, unless it's some kind of boosting item, it's not going to be able to take it out. It's obviously not going to be Specs or Life Orb. We would have seen the item from there. So, with that information, we know that this HP Ice isn't going to kill if it is rocking with it. And if it is Specs, I'm not sure if it showed it guaranteed or not on the Zard, depending on how bulky it is with that Dazzling Gleam. Specs D-Gleam obviously isn't going to knock it out. So that's one mode of, you know, this Landorus being stopped. The second of which is going to be going into Zard, being immune to the Earthquake and trying to deal with it in some way there. But because this is Gen 7, this is going to be a Z Landorus, which means we have the neutral click of Z Fly, which, unless we scout and go into, I guess, Coco, obviously this is going to OHKO everything else or do a ton of damage. And it's not like it really matters if we save the Zard, obviously, because then it come back in at 26%. Dice any hit anyway. So, good use of a good neutral mid-ground click of Fly Z there. It's going to be able to knock out the Zard. And the last stop to this thing just absolutely winning on its own is going to be the Kartana. Kartana can live in Earthquake from full, but you're going to see as it comes in here, this is actually going to be a Hidden Power Fire Landorus. And even if that is Jolly Landorus, no special attack investment because of Kart's really bad special defense, obviously with a mean 31. But even Jolly Landorus, just because of that natural 105 special attack set, is going to be able to pick off the Kart from full, guaranteed 100% of the time, unless there was an Akaberry. And is going to be able to take this thing down. And Scarf could have been potentially scary. I'm pretty sure he would have been fine into the Cobalion, but I mean, Scarf really was not that far away from winning in this game. There wasn't good Leaf Blade resist at all anymore. This thing is an Illumise. The Rotom obviously dies, the Gran obviously dies, and the Cobalt is getting a little bit chipped down, things like that. It's going to have to click close combat into the Coco, and then we can obviously go from there. Like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in this game still, but Big Lando is able to clutch up. It takes this thing out, and obviously the Coco is going to be taken down as well. So that's Big Lando. Again, one of the few instances where you see Lando kind of like be the star of the show, be that endgame win con cleaner, but I had to show it off because it very much so has those capabilities. There wasn't great ground resist on this team. It was only the Mesprit, and I'm assuming the Fly Z, or Mesprit and the Gligar, but once you take out one of them, you have Fly Z for the other, or best case, you take out both of them with your Zard, because Zard forces those things in, especially if they're physically defensive, and you're able to get off a pretty clean win with the Landorus here. So definitely a really fun one. Let's jump on into the next one. Alright, then lastly, we're going to show off an ORAS game here, Specs King versus Burger, and a really, really cool use of Scarflanders, not only offensively looking great, but also defensively as a neutral mid-ground pivot and do a lot of things, able to grab a lot of momentum for this really cool team. You see a big Missy here too, so I guess we get to show off the Mischievous, which is always fun to see these lower tier mons, pop off. We're going to see a lead Heatran into the Zard. Balloon is going to be, the set right here to, block EQ and obviously resist or be immune to the other stats, but Brick Break is able to come out here, pop the balloon as rocks do go up. But the rocks are really important, and we have Big Missy in the back, so it's going to be really hard to spin and block those. Then we see Landorus come in for the first time as, again, that neutral pivot to this thing. If it is random EQ, obviously you're immune to that. If it brick breaks again, you eat it up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But even a Dragon Claw or Flare Blitz, you're really not going to take too much. There's also really like mitigates it going for a potential Dragon Dance right here, and trying to, you know, set up on the Heatran in order to get boosted up. Then it's still neutral, and again, you take a neutral Flare Blitz pretty easily, even if you're not bulky, you're a Landorus. So good pivot right here, and this is going to allow for immediate momentum grabbing. The Rotom Wash is going to be the obvious switch in here, Rotom Wash or the Donphan or the Tornado. So you wouldn't think that like Scarf would be great here, obviously, right? Because there's a lot of immunities to, you know, EQ, and there's also just great natural checks, but it's going to serve as a great pivot this game. This is going to allow Gallade to get in, and Gallade is going to click a button, do a lot of damage to something, maybe not immediately claim a KO, but close combat's going to do 44 to the Donphan, which is always going to be very valuable. Rocky Helmet pops. We always have the Missy to always stop the spin from coming out. Thankfully, no knock came out, because that would have been tough for Missy. But we're going to go ahead and protect this upcoming turn. I guess just scouting to see what, you know, the opponent wanted to go for. If it was a knockoff, so we can make some kind of pivot. Sleep Powder comes out into the Heatran. Thankfully, that misses. I believe the Zard is going to be the switch out, which is obviously going to be nice to be able to get off a Magma Storm off this thing, chip it down, keep it nice and low. We're going to go ahead and see the Magma Storm pop. Roost shows, but nice little tech Dragon Pulse, which is cool instead of Earth Power. You typically don't see that too often, but it's a better neutral click into the team, so it makes sense. Protect's going to come out here, obviously threatening to KO with Dragon Pulse, or Dragon Pulse is out damaging the Roost on top of the Magma Storms. And then from there, again, we can save our Heatran. This is still a good sack in the back. It's still a good resist to the Roserade if it's not packing with like a hidden power ground. And our Landorus is going to take this thing on really well. It's not going to take much damage. Brick Break comes out. Magma Storm's going to go away, but nice little neutral Stone Edge click. It does a lot to Rotom, can potentially 2-hit KO it. Obviously, Okos or 2-hit KOs the Torn, and Donphan coming in is fine. It's at 50%. That means it's in range of Gallade guaranteed at that point as well. So definitely very solid here. Rotom's going to come out next, and obviously we are going to pivot out. See, and again, we keep that Heatran sack, so we're able to maintain momentum. We also stop a potential Will-O-Wisp from coming out, which is obviously good. Then we're going to pivot Lantern, keeping the sack. So again, good pivoting and mid-ground plays from Specs King here, obviously. Able to get into the Lantern, only taking 13. And then this is a very free Volt. I mean, there's not really much that stops it. Willow comes out into the Lantern, but that's fine. Again, we're gaining momentum and initiative. This is that free switch into Gallade. We're getting those U-turns and those Volts off, and we're getting into our breakers, and we're clicking buttons. Because Donphan is not going to be able to take this hit anymore. Close Combat comes out, does a nice little 43, which is obviously okay. Take a little bit of Rocky Helmet. Ice Shard comes out as we actually see a substitute punishing the Ice Shard, which is definitely interesting because this Glade is bulky enough to where this Ice Shard actually doesn't break it. So we're going to see a Rock Tomb come out, which would be nice for Thundurus, obviously, if it wants to come out, kind of deterring that. Zen Headbutt's going to do a ton to the throw. Unfortunately, we go down to Helmet, but again, we've done a ridiculous amount of damage at this point. Heatran's going to come out, again, saving that guy around. He's been sticking around for a little while here, but he's been putting in some work. Now he is probably going to be sacked off pretty soon here, as he does go down to the hidden power, I presume ground, as the Life Orb Torn takes a little bit of chip. But again, out into Landorus, Stone Edge is a KO. So despite not really ever clicking Earthquake in this game, which I don't, yeah, we literally have not clicked Earthquake or Stab move in this game, it's put in a ton of work. It's not done yet though. We're going to go onto our Lantern. We're going to be able to gain slow initiative here, get a free Volt switch off, and get into something that does some damage here, which is obviously very nice. Roserade is going to come out as the Landorus is going to come in on this Roserade pivot, obviously threatening a KO potentially with Earthquake, but you're going to see even better. We talked about a little bit in the intro section, a really cool move that Landorus can do to, one, do a ton of damage to something, and two, reset the tempo and momentum of the battle is going to be Explosion. And this is going to absolutely blow up this Rotom Wash from 64. Doesn't matter how physically defensive you are, you're not going to take that explosion from that rate. Your Landorus does go down, but despite never clicking Earthquake, it picked up how many kills this game? It picked up 1, 2, 3. It won 3 kills? Yeah, 3. I mean, and that's incredible. That's really good, obviously. Misty's going to come out. It is going to get put to sleep here, which is a little bit scary, considering this is a Fizdef Misdreavus. The reason this thing came in is because it's trying to get off a Perish Song. This is definitely a Perish Song set because it's a Misdreavus coming to a game. It does get it off, and this essentially seals the game. There's nothing that the opponent can do, especially in conjunction with Protect. Giga Drain's going to come out. We're going to go ahead and see just probably a Shadow Ball, some kind of damage coming off here, maybe a Pain Split. Yeah, Pain Split, keep this thing nice and healthy. And then from here, just one more Protect, game's over. You can also pivot out into something else if you want Missy to live, but shouldn't matter, to be completely honest. You just want to block the crit potentially coming out. But Perish now pops, and nice 2-0 win for Specs King. Again, Missy put in a ton of work, Glade put in a ton of work, but I think the big star of that game was Scarf Landorus coming in and, you know, positioning and pivoting early in the game with U-turn, but then getting off really strong stone edges and picking up KOs throughout the game afterwards. So definitely, I think, like, one of the better indications of how good Scarf Landorus can be, not only offensively but defensively, pivoting into things like Zard very, very well, and being able to take on those moves alongside Heatran, which is obviously a very, very good tried and true core of Heatran plus Landorus. But yeah, definitely a fun one. I think that's going to be the only ones we show today. I looked through and I come through a lot of the replays, and a lot of them, it wasn't, again, Landorus doing bad by any means from Season 7. But again, it's not typically the star of the show in a lot of these. Again, like a Fizz-Def Landorus is going to get up rocks and check the thing it needs to check. It's not going to be super interesting for me to show you that. But I'm sure you can imagine if a Rocky Helmet Landorus is Rocky Helmet, it's going to, you know, get up rocks, U-turn, make things take chip, maybe get off a big EQ, and maybe go down or something like that. But it did its job. These were games where one was more offensive, and two, this one was, again, still used offensively, but more so just with its natural bulk and defensive typing, and was, you know, a great Scarf variant, obviously, and good to show what Scarf did. And again, you can see similar things with, like, Sword Stance. You're not going to see as much Sword Stance because it's a little bit slower, but definitely is an option that it can go with. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments about this video. Let me know what you think about Landorus. Have you drafted it before? Do you enjoy it? Do you not enjoy it? Drop a like on the video. Sub if you're new. I would really appreciate it personally. We're on our way to 3,000. If everybody watches this today, drops a sub, we'll get to our end of the year goal before December, which would be obviously incredible. So I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.